see so many people in the audience today and to be on this side of a 7TAPS conference. Today, I'll be sharing some practical use cases for 7TAPS within the insurance industry and specifically within specialty lines of insurance. So, as Chris mentioned, my name is Chelsea Walsh, and I am a learning and performance specialist at Nationwide. I work for a learning team that is embedded within our commercial E&S and specialty organization consisting of roughly 2,500 associates. So our team exists to cater to the learning and performance needs of the organization, creating customized learning solutions to support the organization in reaching our strategic goals. Today, I'm excited to share with you how 7TAPS has influenced the way we approach learning and communication within our organization. It's been a game changer for us here at Commercial E&S and Specialty because it's really helped us distill those convoluted topics into coherent chunks, making learning accessible and, yes, even fun. So before we delve into the specifics of how we're using 7TAPS, I'd like for you to indulge me in a little exercise first. So I want you to close your eyes for a moment. And imagine yourself standing in front of a room filled with eager faces, all looking to you for knowledge and insight. You've been tasked with presenting a complex topic, something that requires a deep understanding and nuanced explanation. As you start to unpack the intricacies of the subject, you're noticing a shift happening in the room. Those bright, once eager eyes of your audience are starting to glaze over, and that dreaded information overload has set in. The complexity of the topic, combined with the sheer volume of information, has overwhelmed your audience. It's a classic case of too many words, too little time. Now open your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to use those reaction tools. So I would love to see a reaction if you've ever experienced this glaze over effect before. So whether you're the one presenting the content or the one sitting in the audience struggling to keep up with the flood of information. Okay, I am seeing a lot of reactions come up right now. It's a pretty common challenge, right? So at Nationwide, we've faced this challenge head on and found microlearning to be the perfect solution to help remove that glaze in many cases. Microlearning, specifically through 7TAPS, has allowed us to break down those difficult topics into the smaller pieces, making it easier for our associates to digest, understand, and retain information. The approach has not only made learning more manageable, but a lot more engaging as well. But again, let's not just talk about it. Let's see it in action. Everybody loves a good story. So I'm going to walk you through some real life examples. Allow me to introduce you to Stephanie, a dynamic leader within a newer organization at Nationwide. The inception of Stephanie's team has challenged our organization's traditional business model, our processes, and our approach to cross-functional collaboration. Now, I want you to picture Stephanie and her team constantly caught in this whirlwind of having to explain the complexities of their business model to every single business partner that they interact with. Meeting after meeting, Stephanie and team are having to reiterate the same information just to be met with those glazed eyes because it's a hefty topic to wrap your mind around. They were in dire need of a solution that could educate people quickly and efficiently about what their team does so that they could start building out their infrastructure and acquiring the support they need to be successful. Again, can anyone relate to Stephanie's situation here? So show of hands if you've ever been in a similar circumstance where you're stuck spending all of your time trying to help people grasp a topic versus actually being able to make decisions and move an initiative forward. Again, seeing lots of those reactions. Thank you guys for playing along. I appreciate it. So to help Stephanie and her team, big surprise here, we used 7TAPS. We created a set of 3 courses explaining the intricacies of this new team. So the first course introduces the uniqueness of the team, their business model, target customers, the value add for the organization, and other important information to know. The second course is a dictionary of key terminology that you need to know when you're interacting with this team. And the third course highlights who their current business partners are. So with all of this information now packaged up nicely in a little bow, before meetings, Stephanie and her team can simply send over a link to their 7TAPS courses to their business partners, and they're good to go. The result of that is that the meetings have transformed from tedious and redundant explanations to productive discussions that actually move the needle. Decisions are better informed and business partner relationships have been strengthened. So that's just one example of how we're using 7TAPS as a business partner prep tool. Let's move on to another example of how 7TAPS has made an impact for us. So every organization faces the challenge to build business acumen, right? And let's be real, business acumen is not the sexiest topic. So not only are organizations faced with the challenge to build business acumen, but they're tasked with doing it in a manner that actually yields results. It's not just enough to throw the information at associates and hope for the best. It has to be broken down in a consumable manner that leads to retention and application of that information. So, at Nationwide, as a component of a larger business acumen initiative, we use 7TAPS to create a suite of financial literacy courses that have transformed that insurance jargon into bite sized chunks. Using 7TAPS has allowed us to take the really, let's be honest, really dry subject of financial literacy, break it down to simple terms, and make it engaging and fun. We gave our courses a popular theme that you might recognize, utilizing those GIFs, GIFs, I know everybody pronounces it differently, and the photos available within the platform. We incorporated a multitude of different graphics, including the AI videos, some of our own videos, audio clips, and texts. And a funny story that I thought you might appreciate, we actually had some associates mistake the AI videos for professional actors. So that kind of feels like a win. We concluded each course with quizzes to ensure understanding and knowledge retention. And again, the impact of this, we now have an organization-wide opportunity to upskill in financial literacy, which grants associates with the understanding of how their roles connect and contribute to our overall organizational success. So 7TAPS has really helped support us in our organization's goal to remove that intimidation and confusion around financial jargon and rather build a culture in which associates are learning to embrace and really apply their knowledge of financials. So 7TAPS has helped Nationwide expedite the process of getting people to that aha moment. It breaks down those complex topics into bite-sized pieces and removes that dreaded glaze from people's eyes. It's helped us form better business partner relationships, supported us in developing stronger organizational awareness, strengthened our business acumen across the organization, and truly expedited the process of learning. So next time you find yourself in front of a room full of glazed eyes, remember the power of microlearning and the diverse set of opportunities that 7TAPS provides. And with that, Chris, that wraps up what I have prepared. So thank you for your time.
Boom. I told you I would be right here on the heels. Well, first of all, I think we've got to get a massive round of emojis and chat kudos for your presentation, Chelsea. First of all, I think not only was the content awesome, I got there were lots of comments about the donuts, and I think everybody's maybe a little bit hungry. Yeah. No, so I love the way that you're, thinking about this, the way you're doing all this. I'm curious, as you've gone through, what was that process? How long have you been taking kind of this more approach of digestible? The term I use is snackable, but we've got lots of different variations. Has that always been kind of a thing? Was that newer? How long have you been doing that?
We've been playing around with 7TAPS for a little over a year now. So it's actually a new tool that our team started utilizing.
Okay. Got it. And in terms of, was it something that was driven from the business kind of going, hey, we need to do things differently? Did that come from the learning team going, hey, I think we've got a different creative approach? Was it feedback? Do you know kind of where some of the drive, was it a mix?
I think a mix. Yeah. So I believe it originated with our learning team. There was someone on the team that was exploring new technology, and everyone was very excited about the potential that 7TAPS presented because we didn't have a tool like that in our toolbox yet. We were kind of stuck with some of the more traditional e-learning, which certainly serves its purpose. But some of the other content, again, some of the drier content or more complex topics where people easily check out, we found that we were missing a solution to really cater to that need. So 7TAPS fit to help us with some of those goals.
So on that, because I love, and I about cried when you said business acumen is not an exciting topic, because I actually love business acumen. That would actually be a course that I would probably spend a lot of time in. But I get that's probably not the one that's flying off the shelf. But with that, I'm curious, do you use it broadly? Like, you talked about some of the drier topics. Is it something that primarily where you go, hey, we need more engagement around it? Is it something that you're adopting in other programs? Like, I'm curious, just some of the diversity of how it's coming into the mix.
Yeah, we're still a bit newer to exploring with it, but we're
Okay.
playing around with some different ways to use it. So, yes, some of the bigger topics, um, breaking them down in kind of that snackable format, but also playing around with ways that we can use it for use cases and some of our other larger initiatives. So, when there's a lot
Okay.
rolling out, how can we play into 7 taps to give those kind of visual examples and walk people through different scenarios? So, playing around with it in a couple different
Okay.
areas, but these have been kind of some of our top hits so far.
Okay. So for you as now, are you doing a lot of the design work yourself? Like, are you involved in the design work side of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So for you, as you were going for the snackable thing, this was always interesting for me when I was leading teams, was like the transition from, because it's more than just here, use a different tool. It's
Yep.
like, well, no, you got to approach this. Were there any things that even for you that you were like, okay, this is kind of like different in terms of how you were thinking about it?
Yeah. So I'll say 7 taps is super intuitive. It's really easy
Okay.
to use, and putting together a course only takes a couple minutes, which I love. But I would say the thing I struggled with most is I'm wordy. It's hard to
Okay. Oh
down the
no.
ends of information when you have paragraph really honing down the difficult part, to be honest with you, at least from my
Okay,
perspective.
I'm gonna repeat it because you literally, it was like one of those suspense movies. You were just getting to, and this is the really challenging part for me. And then you just, and so if I think I caught it
And it
correctly,
froze.
it was you find that you tend to gravitate towards wordiness. And so it was like that challenge of going, how do I say what I need to say more concisely? Is that accurate as I picked up on it?
Yes, you got it. It
Okay.
really does challenge you to make your messaging concise, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. I remember I had a team of designers once. I think they hated me for this, but I would make them go through 3 rounds where I would go write it in half. Now write it in half. Now write it in half. And it
Yep.
was, I mean, it was an intentional, like, we can't say it in any less words. I'm like, oh, you can say it in less words. I promise. But it is a real mental
Yeah,
exercise sometimes to figure out how to actually compress what you're trying to say, especially in the age of generative AI that can turn 7 words into a, 38-page white paper.
100%. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And last kind of question for you, like, how has it been, do you have any feedback? How's it been received by the recipients of it?
We've had a lot of excitement, especially when you think, again, Chris, you might be alone in this with your excitement around financial literacy, but that's typically a pretty tough concept for people to wrap their minds around, especially in an insurance world. So we've received a lot of excitement about it. The way that it's broken down into the smaller segments definitely makes it a lot easier to comprehend and apply. So yeah,
Okay.
our
Got it.
associates have liked the shift.
Okay. Got it. All right. So I've got a couple here. I've got this one has three upvotes. So we'll make sure we hit on this one. So have you run into any pushback from like decision makers or stakeholders where it's like, no, we've got this big thing, and you go, we were actually thinking we'd do like a snackable learning, and they go, oh, yeah, I don't know. Have you run into any of that?
We haven't actually. So I'll say nationwide, super encouraging of kind of the innovative approaches and everything. So we received encouragement, if you will, to kind of go out and find new tools and technology.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
good for you guys. That's awesome because I
Yeah.
know that that's often not the case. And I know one of the kind of the second half of that question is advice you would give to help leadership with some of that stuff. And I think I can just say from my perspective on the senior leader side, um, that's a challenge sometimes. And sometimes if you don't have a senior leader who's got your back, I know one of the big things, I'll go head to head with the business leaders and go, you tell us what's important, you let us figure out the how. And
Yeah.
I try to keep my team out of those spicy conversations because they can get very spicy when you got something that's like, no, this 32-page PowerPoint's super important. Every word on here is. So,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. I think that that's a tough one too, but I would challenge you to look at kind of that generational perspective too, and what the new workforce values, and recognizing that this is definitely the shift we need to be making, you know what I mean, to cater to that younger generation. So Definitely
I
food for
love that.
thought.
Yeah, well, and I think that kind of ties to one of these questions from Elizabeth on, how do we do that? And I think tying some of those generational differences, there's a lot of ways, and sometimes it's about figuring out what do they really care about? Because usually, if you can identify what do they actually care about, that's the hang up, you can usually get around it. And
Absolutely.
then let's do one more.
You
Let's
got
do
it.
this. So, in terms of tracking, are you tracking these like through the LMS? Are you doing it more through an informal? Like, how are you going about kind of sending these out and then tracking how it's been going?
So our organization utilizes Workday Learning as our LMS.
Okay.
So we upload all of the courses in there. So yes, Seven Taps has their own set of metrics, but to kind of align with our organization's fashion of doing so, we utilize Workday Learning to house everything.
Okay. Okay. So you're
Yeah,
publishing it through the LMS to get all that data and then pull that back.
you got it.
Let's see. And one last one, I guess here we go. One, this is the top voted one. So I'll pull this up. How long, like in terms of, I think you hinted at it a little bit, but how long do you typically spend actually creating one of your snacks, if you will?
Content aside, once you have your content nailed down and you know what it is that you need, these courses can come together in a couple hours in an afternoon and you're good to go. So it
Okay.
does not take long at all to pull them together.
Okay. Got it. Got it. I like
Yeah.
that. Actually, we have a couple minutes, so I might do a few more because I'm watching the upvotes in this. Now,
Okay.
granted, though, would you follow up question to that? Because couple hours might be the actual creation, but then there's also the challenge you described of kind of like, I mean, you're sorting through some of this stuff, you're actually distilling it, going back to like, how do we say this in shorter? So, in terms of expectation, I always warn my design teams. I'm like, be careful when you commit to times, because you can say I can put that together in a couple hours, but really soup to nuts, we're talking a little bit longer than that.
Fair. I would say it depends on the complexity of the topic. So, for example, our financial literacy courses, that was a couple month project in which we worked with several different SMEs that advised on the content and helped us narrow it down, come up with the right examples. So, the complexity of the topic certainly determines the amount of time it would take you to hone in on that content.
Okay. Okay. And then on the specifically for the financial literacy stuff from Amy on here, question related to this. Now, is that one, the example you showed, is that one that you push out and is like a required course, or is it a, optional kind of like go through, they opt in for it?
Not required, but highly encouraged. So we've kind of left
Highly
it up
encouraged.
to
I
our
like that.
business.
I like
Yeah,
that.
right. Business unit leaders too are kind of mapping out their own considerations for how they want their teams to apply it. So some areas might need more sections than others, but it is something that we've incorporated in our onboarding too. So current associates aside, that's kind of their own journey and if they want to go through it or not. All new associates, it's kind of part of their onboarding curriculum. So we're going to stick with
Okay.
highly encouraged.
Highly encouraged. Yeah, that's I think more and more we, at least I know I do a lot of work to try and help senior leaders move away from the idea of mandatory, because
Yeah.
mandatory is a great way to get employees to go,
Oh, immediate deterrent.
okay, I just have to do it. So what is like the fastest path that I can go through this,
Yeah,
and things like that.
exactly.
And then let's see, I've got a couple other ones we can ask. In terms of this, so you talked about kind of the journey, you're relatively new to the seven taps thing. What did that kind of timeline look like for the designers to kind of pick up on it? And where would you say you are in that process? This one comes from Stephanie.
We've got a couple people on our team that have played around with it more than others, and I think are pretty comfortable with it just after kind of exploring for a little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. And I think you had said earlier when you got in there, from your personal experience, it wasn't a heavy lift. Like I remember the first time I was exposed to Adobe Captivate back in the old days when it was still like Robo Demo. And
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like, here, go build a thing. And you're like,
Yeah,
oh, sweet heavens. This is an absolute nightmare figuring out all the triggers and stuff like that.
absolutely. But that was not the experience at all. We played around in some of those other tools, and Seven Taps is not like that. It's very simple to kind of pick up. And I will say, there are a plethora of resources online too. I watched quite a
Okay.
few YouTube videos for ideas and stuff. So
Okay.
lots of
Well,
stuff.
this community, the community of chat and folks, is just another example. Like people are super fun. I love our industry. So
Absolutely.
the other question, and this is one I think designers always love to ask, because there's never just like one tool that you use. So you've got 7 Taps. That's kind of your course delivery and course. Do you have any other favorite tools? Because people are always like, what other tools do you like in your, and this is just more for you, Chelsea, not less of like the nationwide, but like, what other tools do you like to play around and to help put your content together?
I play around a lot in Adobe Illustrator. So not necessarily e-learning or
Ooh,
microlearning specific, but for more instructional design. So we have the Adobe suite of products that offer some fun stuff
okay.
out there. But I'd say Illustrator's got some great capabilities.
Okay. Now, do you have a graphic design back? Because that's legit. Like Illustrator's legit. When I talk to
It is.
people and they're like, "Oh, I do stuff in Illustrator," I'm like, "Oh, you do like Adobe stuff." And then I talk to other people, they're like, "No, I do lots of graphic design. I use Canva." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, it is graphic design, but it's not like my Adobe friends who went to school to do serious stuff."
Yeah, I do not have a background in it, but it's an area of interest. So one that I'm kind of dabbling in to learn more. And again, lots of YouTube videos, lots of online stuff that kind of helps you navigate that platform because
Okay.
it's definitely not as intuitive as 7 Taps.
I know it's not.
Yeah,
Adobe has some great products, but they are not for the faint at heart. Let's just
not
say
at
that.
all.
It's not like one of the ones where you're like, you know what I think I'll do? I'm just going to pick up Premiere Pro this afternoon and just maybe throw together a quick video. And while I'm at it, I'll do a custom, PNG illustration that I designed. And
Yeah, no
so, yeah,
problem.
okay. Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea. And I would just ask everybody if we can get one more round of emojis for Chelsea. Thank you also for putting up with me and all my questions and the questions that we had from everybody else. This was super, super fun. And I will put you backstage and we'll all hang out at the end. So I'm going to transition